Let's start the afternoon session. This session, you chose to stay, is digital transformation, to talk about digital transformation. We have two excellent panelists with us, and then we'll hear from them their experience in their own digital transformations. Before we doing that, let me just sit down first. Speaking of digital transformations, I think many of you saw that rather a bit shocking reports that came out from IMD, the business school, back in September, that there was a ranking of the digital competitiveness of different countries. Japan was ranked 28 last year, 2021, but for 2022 ranking went back one notch, so 29th. It should have gone to the different directions. But I think so many has been discussed in many different contexts, but Japan's digital transformation is a little bit lacking. By the way, US is ranked number 2 in the world on the same ranking system. And then there are so many Asian countries. Actually, within top 10, 3 Asian countries are ranked there: Singapore, South Korea, and Hong Kong. So Japan is kind of lagging behind. But digital transformation, the way it started was that what I recall over 10 years ago, that because of all that the IT technologies, AI, deep analytics, and Internet of the Things, and all those kind of things coming into become available for the business, and the people needed to use those new technology to transform their business. Therefore, it's kind of called business digital transformations. Now, so all those things are in the background, but there are many things going on in the digital transformation started from just improve the product delivery and product definition of the product itself, but now kind of start implemented in a much bigger way. The whole community, whole city are going to be transformed by those digital X, Y, and Z. So today we have very great panelists with me. Far from me, Dr. Aya Kameda. She is with Shell, and she's going to talk to us about the community level digital transformation happening in northern part of Japan, in Niigata. So, and then Dr. James Kaffner, right next to me. He's from Woven. He's a CEO of a Woven Planet, which is, I think many of you are aware. This is a very ambitious project led by Toyota, and in the Woven City, which is just outside of Fujisan. So I am very excited to hear their stories and their experience. So let's just enjoy learning about it, and let's discuss how it is going. So let's start with Aya, and she's going to give us her presentations about her project. So Aya, please.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, US-Japan Council, for this opportunity. And thank you, James, for the moderating. Kazu-san for moderating. And James, it's an honor to share the stage with you. And thank you all for being here today. And before I begin too much further, those of you who speak English might be wondering, well, why does she sound so funny? She doesn't sound Japanese and she doesn't sound American. Well, actually, my native language is Hiroshima dialect. When I was little, my dad moved us, he worked for Shell, to South Africa. So from there, we went from South Africa, Singapore, United States for many, many years. I'm a US citizen, so I'm Shin Issei, Japanese American. And then I've worked in the US, Canada, Singapore, Brunei, and I finally came back like a salmon fish about a year ago. So I am Shakaijin Ichinensei in Japan. So I'm quite new to Japan, and I'm very excited to be powering progress in the community using digital technology. Before I begin, I have to, my lawyers told me I have to tell you, don't invest in any stocks based on whatever I say today. When you think of Shell, you know, this little Shell Pectin logo, what do you really think of? Because it might be gas stations, right? And when I was growing up as a little girl in Japan, I'll go by the Shell gasoline stations, gas stands, and I'll say, that's where Papa works, yeah? So because my dad used to work for Shell. So my dream right now is to have Shell, you know, electric vehicle chargers everywhere in Japan so that my little girl, who's 5 years old, can say, that's where Mama works. So that's my dream, and my team is here today with me, and we're here to make our dreams come true together. So this is Shell's global strategy. It's called Powering Progress. So apologies to the translators. There's no other way to translate it. Just say Powering Progress. Yeah. There are basically 4 pillars to the Powering Progress. So first off, we have to have financial sustainability, being a responsible company. And so we have to generate shareholder value while accelerating energy transition. We also are committed, just like everybody here, in net zero emissions. So we're aiming to be net zero by 2050 and also cut down our absolute emission at least by 50% by 2030. And being an energy company, it's a pretty ambitious, but we think it's a good target to have. The third pillar is powering lives. So it's about equality, inclusiveness, and making people's livelihoods better, which is why I think this community theme is really resonating with me and with a corporate strategy. And lastly, respecting nature. So obviously for environmental sustainability, but also looking at how do we reduce waste while we are accelerating the energy transition as well. And you may not know this, but Shell has actually invested quite a bit in Japan in the more cleaner energy business. And this is an example. This is Hystra project funded by Japanese government, and this is Suiso Frontier. And this was the world's first demonstration of liquid hydrogen being transported from Australia to Japan. And they made their successful maiden voyage, completed it in February of this year. And Shell has a global supply chain and shipping experience. So our shipping Stasco was the operator of the Suiso Frontier, and we're very proud that we were able to contribute through our safe operations as well as learner's mindset, which I think is also very important for digital transformation as well. And this is my team's mission in Japan. So we're a Japanese team. So we want to become the trusted energy transition partner for Japan as a supplier of secure and stable power solutions. And in order to make this mission and vision come true, we've been listening, going out on bullet trains, out in the communities to understand what are the needs. And these communities, what we find is that they have such strong will and passion for renewables. They want to generate renewables, they want to consume renewables, they want to be net zero themselves. Yeah? They want to lead the world. But what they say they don't have are technologies. They don't have the skill set or expertise in power. And what can we offer as Shell or any company that has these skill sets is that we can go there, complement their will and desire, and help them make their dreams come true. And this is a picture of Sado Island. The Japanese government is launching a decarbonization leading area. That stands for Senko Chiki. And the goal is that they will select 100 communities throughout Japan, that they will become a role model for the rest of Japan and obviously rest of the world. And they have already selected 26 communities. And Sado Island in Niigata are actually one of those 26 communities that were selected. And many of you probably already know that Sado Island is famous for gold mines. So it was my dream, and I love history, to always go to Sado and to be able to go there and offer a help to help them achieve this 脱炭素先行地域 so that they can not just decarbonize, but revitalize the island. I feel just so honored to be part of it. Yeah. Now, to do this, I can't do this alone. Nobody can. I think somebody said sustainability is like a team sport. So to do this, I have brought our friends InnoWatt, and I thought it would be very great to feature them because they are a Houston company, American company, a leading AI technology company. What they do is they maximize energy data for smarter, leaner, and cleaner solutions. So their customers can be smart cities, and they have examples in the United States as well as utilities, grid, transmission, distribution companies, energy retailers, and consumers. And with them, we go into these communities to see if we can offer our support so that they can achieve their dreams. And here I'm showing a picture, and you might be wondering, why does she have a sake photo? And I'll get to that in a little bit. But to the right, I have a picture of Nagaoka Power Generation and its plant manager, Tsuboi-san, who is from Niigata. And this is my favorite photo because he planted that sunflower himself. He loves that power plant so much, and he loves his community. But what this power plant does, and we've recently acquired it in September 30th, they take domestic gas from Japan. And I'm sure many of you didn't know we actually do have domestic gas in Nagaoka City in Japan, 5 kilometers away from the plant, and they generate power. And this gas engine is very efficient, and it could go from 0 to 100 in 8 minutes. And what does it mean? So if you're trying to use renewables, what happens to sunlight and wind? It's very intermittent. So if you're a customer, you need stable and secure power, but you want clean power. What these gas power plants can do is become a companion to help with the intermittency, so it becomes a flex power source, which is why we were very passionate about helping energy transition, and as part of this, we acquired this power plant. And with it came Tsuboi-san, who is in the photo here. And, but when we are looking at this model of locally produced, locally consumed model, so locally produced gas, locally produced power, combined with local solar, local wind, being given to local consumers and customers, we first need to understand who are the local stakeholders, who are the customers. So we asked our local advisor, Daishi Hokuetsu Bank, here today, and we asked them, hey, so what is in Niigata? And they said, Aya-san, lots and lots of rice farms and sake. Yeah? And I said, oh, brilliant. Did you know that in the process of rice cultivation, you actually produce methane in the soil? And methane is 25 times worse than CO2 in terms of greenhouse effect. So by helping rice farmers reduce their methane emissions in the soil, you can actually also be contributing to the net zero community and society. And Shell has these skill sets from all over the world. We look at forestry, wetlands, and also agriculture. So with that, we're working with local stakeholders, rice farmers and sake makers. And that's why I wanted to mention this. And another reason why I wanted to talk about this sake is I got to know these people, Yoshinogawa, and they are, CEO here, 470-year-old sake maker. That's before Edo period, that's Muromachi Jidai. They have been making sake for 470 years, and they are so keen on decarbonization, these rice cultivation techniques, and they want to work with us, and they want to work with lots of different people. And I was so impressed, and I asked the CEO, I'm like, where'd you get this inspiration? I mean, you're such a powerhouse, a tradition, and you're into digitalization, decarbonization. What inspires you? And he just said, Aya-san, tradition is a series of reinvention. Dento wa kakumei no koushin da to. I mean, that struck me, and I had goosebumps when he said it. And I was like, what a wonderful phrase, that for them to be surviving and thriving for 470 years, they had to reinvent themselves over and over and over again. So they are not afraid for change. And that mentality really is what we really need to do anything new, anything innovative. We can't just bring in technology and shove it down people's throats. There has to be the culture and understanding from the receiving end and the pull and the want. So I thought it was just so inspiring and decided to talk about Yoshinogawa. But also, Yoshinogawa partnered with Nozomi Japan. They make sustainable food products. So the two of them decided to make sustainable sake, which is this shiro kimono. And I bring this up again for yet another reason, because this is the US-Japan Council, and there is a story behind this sake. They invited a Japanese-American gentleman sake maker. He was born in the US, grew up in Seattle, came back briefly to Japan, but left for university in the United States, and he's been training in Europe. So they said, Osaki-san, go ahead. Don't worry about the status quo of sake. You do what you want. They gave him the reins. And that's how this sustainable sake was born. Nothing is wasted in the process of making the sake, even the bottle and the box. And I've tasted it. Some people say sake tastes like ethanol. This one does not taste like ethanol. It tastes like white wine with the essence of sake that we all look for. And it's perfect. And I thought the story of Osaki-san and how a 470-year-old sake maker invited a Japanese American to create something so innovative and so fantastic was a quintessential story that's worthy of US-Japan Council. And I feel like this connection and the relationship is all, what we really talk about, right? This is part of the mission and vision of US-Japan Council, which is why I wanted to feature the sake especially today. So just to summarize, I think there are a few things that I've learned in my last year of being the Japanese Shakaijin Ichinensei, is we have to just look at both. We have to solve for decarbonization and revitalization. We can't just decarbonize, take away and extract from regions and not give anything back. We have to have this chisan chisho, the locally produced, locally consumed model, because I think in the end, with energy security issues, with aging populations, the more we can do this, the more we can solve many of our problems and become the role model for the world. And dento wa kakumei no koshin. Tradition is a series of reinvention. I think that's the exact mentality we all need to have to encourage and embrace digitalization. It cannot be just a fancy thing that we do. It needs to be part of our tradition. It needs to become our new tradition. And lastly, we need to find a good ally. And although Shell has been in Japan for 120 years, we're still seen as a foreign company. We need to find partners and allies that know a lot about Japanese communities and the local people, what they really need. And to have this Chiki alliance is very important. And we were very lucky because actually the US-Japan Council members and sponsors today in this room, many of them are our allies and partners. So we're very, very thankful for them. But in Niigata, Daishi Hokuetsu Bank, they are the ones who are connecting us to the wonderful sake makers and the different communities in Sado and elsewhere in Tohoku region, and looking for opportunities where we can collaborate together with Tohoku Electrics and others, opportunities to provide cleaner and smarter energy for the local communities. So I hope that Shell gets to be here for another 120 years. And we value in Japanese, we say goen. It's like this relationship that you make. It's a special connection that's like fate. I feel like we have the goen, so many right now, that we can all make a difference together. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Aya. Thank you. I didn't expect to hear about the company 470 years old being so much right in the center.
120 sounds like nothing.
Yeah, it just sounds very young. But yeah, it's very impressive. But the way you pull together all the players and create the alliance, that's the key of your project. That's great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, so let's change that the speaker to James. So yeah, please give us your presentation.
Thank you very much. It was very inspiring to hear from a sustainability and energy point of view. I think that's very much aligned with one of the things I'd like to talk to you about today. And when thinking about digitalization, I wanted to talk a little bit about how that's impacting mobility and a traditional car company like Toyota. So the theme is about human-centered mobility. And next slide. Oh, wait, actually, can I?
Oh, yes.
Sorry. Before I begin, I wanted to reflect a little bit on human activities. For millions of years, humans have been moving and building things, communicating with each other, and thinking. And we've built technologies like transportation technology to help us move further and faster than we ever could, manufacturing technology to help us build things with precision and scale, and also we've all lived through the information technology revolution, helping us communicate with anyone, anywhere in the world at any time, digitally. And now we have artificial intelligence actually helping us think, new tools. And if you put all these things together, you get a connected, automated driving vehicle. So I think it's one of the most exciting fields to be working on. And when you step back, the most complex machine that humans have invented is the computer. And I always talk to my students and colleagues that you can't actually design today's computer without a computer. And it's more than just a single computer. We have them networked together with ability to process vast amounts of data and do billions of arithmetic calculations beyond what we could imagine even a short 20 years ago. And if you connect those computers and that data center to a physical system, you get a robot, like an automated vehicle, a robot car, a robot that can actually manipulate things in the world. And most of the robots are in our factories today, but the intelligence of the machine is getting better and better to the point where we're going to start to see this technology leaving factories and entering more of our daily lives. So how does the society adapt? And how does a company that's making cars adapt? And so when we connect these physical systems to the cloud, it becomes like a huge knowledge store. When I was in graduate school, if I didn't know something, I went to the library. And then when I became a professor, my students told me after being years at Carnegie Mellon that they'd actually never been in Carnegie Mellon's library. And it was a shock to me. But now we literally take it for granted that we can pull out a smartphone, which is a supercomputer, more powerful than the most powerful supercomputer of 20 years ago, that we all have in our pocket, and we can literally get information and answers to almost anything. And so when we combine that with a machine that can actually change the world and change atoms in the world, it's really interesting. And so when we think about the disruption of the automotive industry, these four forces you may have heard, this connected technologies, autonomy, sharing, electrification, all happening at the same time. And my colleague, Dr. Gil Pratt, talked a lot about the electrification and the energy aspects of that. But the president has said that Toyota can no longer be a car company, but needs to be a mobility company, and it's very much consistent with the theme of reinvention. Some of you may not know, but Toyota started out as a loomworks, making weaving machines. It's where actually the word woven planet and woven city comes from. The tradition of over 100 years ago, Sakichi Toyota, seeing his mother weaving and how hard she was working, and said, I want to make some technology to help her. So when we think about mobility, what's the difference between mobility and just cars? We're really thinking about three types of mobility, in particular the mobility of people, moving from place to place, also goods. We have package delivery. This was greatly increased during the pandemic, people having food delivered or packages delivered, and also the mobility of information and how those things connect together. But there's another important definition, which is an emotional one. I feel moved. How is it that I feel moved by people or a community or by products and technologies and services bringing smiles to customers? And so the vision of Woven Planet as a new subsidiary of Toyota was to try to lead Toyota's transformation to mobility by becoming a center of excellence for software, and particularly an emphasis on quality and safety in a tradition of Japan. So we have a couple of companies that we've now built responsible for next generation innovation in digital technology transformation, electrification of powertrains and how we adapt to that, and automated driving, as well as investments in the future. This is the product that we brought to market last year, which is our Teammate advanced drive product, which you can buy on the second generation zero emissions fuel cell vehicle, the Mirai. It also was released on the Lexus 500 hybrid, the Teammate product that you can buy as a Lexus advanced drive. But when we think about these technology innovations, sometimes as an engineer, we forget what the goal is. So we love the technology, but is the technology the goal? And essentially what we are trying to make sure that we never forget that helping people and having human-centered technology development is actually our real goal. How can we bring health and happiness to people and communities? And when we think about the cities of our world, this is of course Tokyo, New York, you get lots of different solutions that cities across the world have come to deal with the problems of pollution, traffic, safety, sustainability. But it's becoming an even bigger problem as the world globalizes and concentrates its population centers in its cities. So at 2020, a project was announced to look at the current traditional street, and if we divide the streets into vehicular traffic, which moves at a certain average velocity, and then you have intermediate speed mobility, personal mobility, bicycles, and then you have pedestrians, and you weave these together to form a grid. Can we create safer mobility inside of urban centers? This became the concept of the Woven City project, which was announced at CES 2020 in partnership with Bjarke Ingels, very well known as an architect leading the Bjarke Ingels group with the president. And Woven Planet was asked to help manage this project on behalf of the Toyota Group. And really what it is a test course for mobility innovation, a place where we can try it with agility and speed, test out new kinds of mobility and connected infrastructure to try to bring better safety. We must not forget that there's 1 million people dying in the world from traffic accidents every year. And we can do so much better if we build better technology and infrastructure. And so that's one of the key motivations around this test course. And it's a human-centered living laboratory that the president has said should never be finished. So it means I can never retire. It will always be evolving. But the idea is that it's beautifully situated on the former site of the Toyota Motor East Japan factory, which unfortunately had to be closed in order for Toyota to build the new factory in Tohoku after the great earthquake, because Toyota wanted to do something to help stimulate that region that was devastated by the great tsunami. So instead of letting this old factory site go to waste, we decided to invest and create something special for the world, which is this new mobility test course. So the purpose is to create well-being for all. That's the North Star of our mission. And where we want to be is a vision that expands mobility for people and enhances our humanity and engages society. This is where we hope, and we hope that this test course will help create the future fabric of life. And real-life applications tested in a real-life setting is a wonderful way to innovate, getting continuous feedback, being agile, being innovative, and I think it's very well suited with Toyota's tradition of Kaizen and improvement. But since the theme of this is digital transformation, one of the things that we're going to fully leverage is digital technologies as we test these applications. So we're going to accelerate our development utilizing state-of-the-art digital technology, much the same way that computer-aided design tools have dramatically increased our efficiency and productivity and the speed at which we can design things like engines or vehicles. We're building digital twins, proxies for our hardware that we can experiment and iterate much rapidly. So here we have an employee who can sit in the digital cockpit of a future vehicle that has never been built yet, but still experience it using advanced VR and digital technology. We're also creating a full digital model of the city itself. So it takes a long time to build a city. And oftentimes our human cities are built somewhat ad hoc. You know, buildings get built, bridges get built, but they may not be fully optimized. Here we have a chance to actually try to understand if you were to deploy 200 electric personal mobility devices to support a population of 3,000 people who needed to get around a city, where would you put the charging stations? That's a question that you wouldn't be able to answer very easily manually, but you could leveraging this digital tool and the cloud. We're looking also at the mobility of goods and logistics. One of the unique things that is aligned with Toyota's philosophy of continuous Kaizen is the Toyota Production System. So we build digital models of goods movement within the city. The phase 1 of Woven City is unique because it will have actually underground tunnels for logistics. So the mobility of people will be on the ground level and packages will be on the level below, much like Disneyland. But we test things in the real world. And so we can use our digital tools today to actually test what we will deploy a few years from now. We just actually had the safety ceremony at the base of Mount Fuji in Susono just a few weeks ago. So I was able to pray for the safety of the construction along with my colleagues. And it was really wonderful. We're so grateful that even during the pandemic, we were able to keep on schedule and actually the building construction is started. But we're not waiting for the building construction to finish. We're actually doing experiments now today. This is a project in partnership with our Toyota Research Institute colleagues. Dr. Gil Pratt spoke earlier, but we're trying to create mobility inside the house as well as outside to help people support their lives. Many people, especially in Japan, is going to have the aging society. How can we have technology that will help people age in place so that they can be happier and stay connected in their communities? Because it really is mental, physical, emotional well-being is really what it means to have well-being for all. So we're investing in this technology. We're also looking at new kinds of mobility. Toyota is the largest shareholder of Joby Aviation, which is an American eVTOL company in the Bay Area. I also serve on the board member of this company, but we're trying to see how we could bring new kinds of zero emissions flying mobility to market. As you know, aviation is accounting for a huge amount of carbon, so we need to decarbonize aviation as well. So this might be one promising way that we could bring a scalable flying mobility to more people. But the fundamental goal is really to amplify human potential. How can we unlock the full potential and capability of not just an individual, but our societies? I think during the pandemic, we saw education, working from home, people attending school remotely, but many people feel that was somewhat of a disaster for children because it's very hard to teach without having hands-on, face-to-face learning. Can we create new digital tools and new technology to help amplify human potential with the goal of health and happiness for people in our planet? Because it isn't just the well-being of a person, but the well-being of a community and a planet. So I believe digital technology, reinventing oneself, reinventing community, reinventing society, the way we work, the way we live, the future fabric of life is what we are trying to propose, and we hope that Woven City will help become a center of innovation for Japan that will help lead the world towards a more sustainable future and safer mobility for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, James. Excellent presentations from both of you. Definitely we learned something common. Both of you talked about human-centric and then tried to address a lot of our big issues, like, of course, the sustainability, well-beings, and safety. There were definitely a lot of common things. Plus, I wanted to point out that so many years ago, I guess, that when you talk about digital transformation, people start talking about all the nitty-gritty digital technologies.
Yeah.
None of you talked anything about that. I love it. I remember, kind of that reminds me a little bit off the track here, but I'm from NTT, so when 10 years ago, when the digital transformation became a big topic, we brought a lot of customers to the seminar, and all day long we talked about those nitty-gritty technology stuff. I took those customers out for dinner. One of the customers, the waiter came to this customer and, do you have any food restrictions? He said, are you allergic to anything? He said, I'm allergic to digital. And so that was a very big mistake, and you guys probably definitely went over that. Anyway, so it was very interesting to hear about these projects going on here in Japan. I talked a little bit about the Japanese digital competitiveness ranking and stuff. Because you are the experts in both areas, I want to ask you, I cannot help you asking this question. How do you see something similar? Is there something similar projects going on in the rest of the world, and how you evaluate your project uniqueness and advancement and so on? I want to ask you that question. So, who would you like to go first?
Okay,
James?
I'll take a crack. One of the other hats I wear is Chief Digital Officer for Toyota Motor Corporation, and when I started looking at the digitalization efforts that we have, it's not just our factories or our engineering teams, but also our customer experience, our sales experience, and how we actually transform the way we work with better tools, with the goal of happier customers and also happier employees. And the joke was with my team that if there's ever been a piece of hardware or software invented in the past, it's still running somewhere in the Toyota Group. We have legacy systems everywhere, and it's really hard, and it'll take a long time. Toyota was successful in the early days when it grew its business around the world by having a lot of regional autonomy. And the strategy was, let's be best in town. Let's build a product that's best in town, that meets the needs of every local customer. And that worked really well, but it also meant that each region chose lots of different tools to get things done. And now we have a huge amount of technical debt. And so we're trying to globalize, we're trying to standardize. And I think that's one of the things that I learned was that by building common global data platforms, moving, one of the strategies of our transformation that I've outlined is cloud first. We're trying to really move off of trying to manage and run our own data centers, which Toyota can never really compete against Microsoft or Google or Amazon and being cost efficient for that. But we can actually allow the cloud companies to compete for our business by providing good requirements and needs with regard to data. And so that strategy has been moving forward. We're seeing cost savings from doing that, also increases in cybersecurity, lots of reasons to do that. But as we globalize, we're going to see better economic value and also hopefully better value for our customers and employees using better digital tools.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. My organization belongs in the power business, so we don't rank projects based on is digitalization more advanced here or there, right? So we are actually users of the digital. So Shell has an arm that invests in these technologies, and they do that. And to be honest, I think most of the technologies and companies belong to US or Europe. Yeah. So, but it's left up to myself and my team, and we have a lot of freedom to choose what we do with the technology that's available to us in the way that will achieve Shell's Powering Progress mission. So for the businesses here in Japan, we go to the front line, we go to Gemba, and then what we think is right for the customer is the tool we choose. Yeah, and we don't rank them based on economic value, globally. We do the right thing by our customers. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, especially your project, very kind of ingrained with the local communities. Yeah. And I would imagine, could I ask you one a little bit off the topic, but what's your necklace that I would imagine that means something about this project?
Thank you so much, Kazu-san, for asking me about this necklace. So this is made of silver and gold threads that are used for kimonos, and this is made by a Japanese artist. And I wore this in honor of Sado Island in the gold mines, and I wanted to wear a piece. If you want to buy this for your girlfriends or wives or for yourself, ask me and I'll tell you where I got it.
Okay, there you go. Very good salesmanship coming in. Okay, so a little bit different project, different questions. So what do you think, well, definitely interesting projects going on. What is the key to success to those kind of involving a larger, those to basically change create the new town, create the new community. That's the whole idea of your projects going on. What would you? I think it's a massive undertake and a lot of players you need to pull together. But is there any key? Probably not just one. What do you think are the most important aspect to bring your project to successful?
Well, I think, from Woven City point of view, from the very beginning, we knew that this is something we couldn't do alone. And it does need to involve a community, government, academics, and industry to partner. And I think you mentioned that as well. For us, we already have been partnering with lots of organizations. Thank you, NTT. So we have a partnership with NTT as well to sort of invest in this. But it's really about sustainability, safety, energy. We hope that we can leverage the strength that Toyota has in automotive technology to create safer mobility. But we know that we can't do it alone. So I think that partnership, the engagement with the community, we've tried to make a very good relationship with the surrounding community. Toyota has historically grown with communities. The city of Susono grew together with the TMEJ factory, and the community has been supportive. So we're really focused on trying to do a partnership strategy that brings together the right skills, technology, and community and government support together to make it successful.
Yeah, I'm just completely copying and echoing everything, but just add something a little bit new angle. In Japan, I think jiseki, credibility, track record is extremely important. So for Shell, we may have a lot of credibility in track record in LNG, oil and gas, but in power, renewable, smart city, we don't, yeah? Elsewhere globally we do, but in Japan, no jiseki. Yeah. So it's very important that we have trusted partners who give us a chance and let us build that track record. And I'll give you an example. For Innowatt, a very critical partner was West Holdings from Hiroshima. And what they did was they trusted us and said, we have lots and lots of low voltage solar data, providing for Amazon or others. Why don't we try to collaborate with you? So now we've got a project where we take their mega solar and we wheel it to their office in Hiroshima, and whatever that's excess, we wheel it again to their group company, so we don't waste any electron that's coming from a solar. And to do this, we use Innowatt's AI technology with a very sharp generation, demand forecast, and managing these assets. And because they allow to do that, that then opened doors for others to trust us, come to talk to us, and it led to one opportunity, which led to another opportunity, which led to making all these goen. So I think you just need that chance that you're given to demonstrate that you can do it. And after that, I find that in Japan, people will give you more chances and more opportunities.
Yeah, like building the trust. That's
Yes,
the important part. I
record.
really understand that, and I think everybody feels the same. Speaking of the trust, and then also try to get the whole country to transform. The Japanese government a couple of years ago established digital agencies, and then tried to transform the government itself to more digital ready kind of thing, which is scope is probably to some extent related to your project, but not a whole lot. But again, let me ask you a question. And from your point of view, you are experts in these areas, living in Japan, involved in this type of project. What you see the digital agencies, and if there is any suggestions, recommendations, I think that probably gives good indications to all of us. So would you like to take this question?
Well, I can say I've lived a cumulative about 7 years of my life in Japan. This latest stint has been about 4.5 years. And so I recently got a My Number card. How many people have a My Number card? Oh, not as many as I thought. That is a problem. But you know, the My Number card is essentially the equivalent of the Social Security number that Japan has never had, but it's protected by a password. Like, it's actually a huge problem in the United States that a Social Security number, I mean, the number itself is like a key to unlock your credit, and that's really dangerous. In Japan, it's got more digital technologies with passwords and things. But the odd thing was when I went to the government office to create my My Number card, they had me write my password on a piece of paper. Thinking, what is this? So I think, you know, there are a lot of challenges. I mean, when I got my driver's license in Japan, it was huge undertaking, just with tons of paper forms. And so I'd like to support, you know, with Toyota to help digital transformation, how the industry can help lead and help the government and society. I think the My Number card initiative will help. It can produce a lot of productivity and reduce a lot of inefficiencies. And there's a plan to unify the driver's license with the My Number card going forward. So Toyota is trying to, you know, advise on how we could do that together with dealerships and others. But you know, I do think that this is super important. I actually think it's very important for Japan to have its ranking go up instead of down. So I'd like to support it.
Thank you.
Yeah, my first half a year of living here was going to Kuyakusho, City Hall, file another paperwork to get the personal seal, the certificates, and every time somebody needed me to sign something, I'm working remotely, but I have to go physically into the office and stamp and go home and thinking, why is this technologically advanced country still living in this seals and paper? So completely agree. In terms of user interface, I think it's a huge step forward and will only improve our lives. I think I'd like to add and maybe suggest is that data energy also has to be more, become more uniform and accessible. When I talked to one of the communities, they said, we actually don't have a way of knowing how much demand of power we have in a village. Did you know that? We can't do that in Japan. It gets rolled up by like a prefecture level. So you can't just look at it and segregate and say, this village has this kind of demand, and this is the kind of power that's very dependent on temperature. This is the power they always need. It's like a base load. If you don't have that information, how are you going to plan solar panels or batteries or EV chargers? You can't, yeah? So I think we have to start there. And the work I did with InnoWatts was quite interesting because that's what they did for the United States and many of the customers and companies. When we try to do that in Japan, the data itself, it's not quite there yet. So I think if we can get the government's help with that, I think we'll be able to visualize where the energy is being used, and that will lead to efficiency and huge improvements.
Yes, that the step number one is that to collect the data and then make the data visible and available to the relevant people. And so, yeah, that's the step number one. Okay, I want to open the questions to the floor now. If you have any questions, please raise your hand. If not, I can continue asking them a question. So just give you a chance to think about the question that you want to raise. Okay. So another, I think, interesting. So these projects, a big, huge undertake. How do you? I think once you start this project, I think this is going to be a long-term project. I'm sure you guys are all thinking about. To make those projects, long-term surviving, I think it has to be sustainable. Sustainable in this case is financially sustainable. Without that, then none of the project will sustain. So any It might be a bit too early question to some cases, but any plans, any comments from that perspective? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, certainly. So some of the specific projects, we're in the early stages to create sustainable model, business model, a success case. So it's good for the environment, it's good for the community, and there's financial sustainability. And we think we've got a good footing here. But I can't comment on the exact return on investment. But I can tell you some examples from the United States. So when we look at energy data in the United States, and with Innowat's experience as well, what they do is they look at the smart meter level data from each of your homes. Yeah? And they can tell if it's something is an air conditioning, it's an EV charger, it's a rooftop solar, or if it's a refrigerator. And what they can do is then they tell the companies, the energy retailers, and say, hey, tomorrow you're going to have a problem. You're going to have a supply problem because Texas is going to be 105 degrees. Yeah? So between noon and 12:30, these are the top-ranking customers with the largest flexibility. You ask them to shift their demand, adjust their thermostat, and you can provide a peak cut. Yeah? So the retailers save hundreds of thousands, millions of money. They don't go out of business. The customers are offered Amazon gift cards, so they of course comply. In Japan, I think you just have to ask and people do it, but you could ask. you could offer an Amazon gift card and incentive. But they found that in one summer, one household would save $75 just from this initiative. Yeah, so that's one house. Imagine a retailer has 10,000 customers, 30,000 customers, 1 million customers, that times $75. And this day and age, that's a lot of yen.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, for us, we as Toyota have been building test course for making ever better cars. And Woven City is meant to be a foundational investment as a test course for mobility. And we hope that this will lead to lots of innovation. And I think one of the challenges of testing new kinds of mobility is if you want to test new mobility, whether it's electric mobility, e-scooters, e-bikes, these things are heavily regulated, and it's sometimes very difficult because the safety is not confirmed yet, and the cities are not sure how to adapt to them. But we're hoping that we can actually do that much more rapidly. And understand the relation between smart infrastructure and smart mobility, and how those can create safer and more sustainable societies for our cities. The last thing I'll say is when we think about human-centered, we often think about data and security and privacy are really important. And so we try to think about security and privacy by design, meaning that if I have a smart crosswalk, we try not to ever over-collect data that we don't need to. For example, this smart crosswalk needs to know if there's a person in the crosswalk, but it doesn't need to know that James is in the crosswalk, right? So we can anonymize and make the infrastructure, respect privacy and have good security, and at the same time provide better safety. So that's one of the principles that we're trying to do to create our innovation sustainable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Great. Any questions? Okay.
I think there's something.
Is there a microphone? Yeah, please come. In the front row. Oh.
Thank you very much for your very thought-provoking presentations. I'd like to ask each of you regarding a possible kind of opportunities for your projects in Japan to go overseas. For example, to Southeast Asian countries or India. Like your good practices or models, being developed maybe in Japan or the United States, and how you can kind of solve all those social challenges facing emerging economies across Asia.
Well, I think if Toyota and Shell go hand in hand together,
Oh, there you
and,
go. That's
change the Sado Island and other communities that have aging population, mobility issues. I think that we think of Japan's aging problem as maybe a Japan problem. But I think the rest of the world, there's some countries are going to be in the same position, and it's going to be a global problem. So I feel that by solving this challenge of sustainability and aging population together, we will become the role model for the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. So I think essentially we are trying to make that success case, and I'm just so pleased with Toyota's project. And I'm not sure if you know, but my husband was in an accident a year ago, and he was paralyzed from neck down. He's been going to physical therapy, so he's getting better. But when you said mobility and move, I nearly cried, because you witness people who really have that challenge. And I just applaud you for making a difference. And for us, as we get older, this is not going to be somebody else's problem. It will be all of our problems. So let's solve it together.
Yeah, it's very well said. I had to take away the car keys from my mother 2 years ago, and mobility is, the loss of mobility can be deeply a loss of freedom and a feeling of self-worth. So we want to provide mobility for everyone, and that means this new technology can enhance people's freedom of mobility. And so I think it's super important. All of us eventually will be too old to drive. So it is something that impacts all of us for sure. And for me, Woven City is not just for Woven City. It's meant to be a place where Japan can export new technology and innovation for the world to help the world's cities solve their problems of safety and sustainability. So I think together we need your help. But I also would love it to become a center of excellence and innovation for startups and entrepreneurs globally who would come and say, hey, I have this idea and I want to test it out at scale in a test course for the future fabric of life. And hopefully that will become something that Japan will actually lead the world in.
Wonderful. Thank you. I think there was, one. Okay. You have to kind of fight which one gets the microphone. I got two hands. Okay.
Yes. Thank you for the very interesting information about what both your companies are doing. Toyota in particular, it's kind of mind-boggling, the size of the challenges, very ambitious goals that you have. How do you set priorities of what you can do? Because there's just so many things that, options that you have to invest in. And even as a large company, you really have to pick and choose.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great question, and I wish I had the full answer. But in all honesty, one of the things that we're trying to do is in much way a Silicon Valley style of really prioritization, agility, and ranking impact, where we have, clear goals and measurable results, key results that are time-bounded and measurable, and really try to, in an agile way, make progress. And so we can start small, and once we achieve a certain milestone, that unlocks like the next phase of investment. But it is a big challenge, and that we can't do everything. So we do have a huge backlog, that we're managing. But then, I've asked the team to sort of focus on, these are the top 20 things or the top 15 projects that we're going to focus on in the next 5 years, and we're going to, in every 6 months or every quarter, be checking the progress. And then Toyota has always had this philosophy of agility in terms of Kaizen, of start, stop, continue, or change, right? And so that's what we're doing for each of the projects.
Great. Okay, so yeah, this is going to be the last question. So.
Well, thanks. Thank you, both of you, for very insightful presentations. What I wanted to ask is, it seems you both have really honed your skills and trained the part of your mind at driving transformation and building alliances. Could you share with us how you built those skills and how we can, maybe apply those to what we do?
That's a good question.
US-Japan Council. No, seriously, I think I did that over the years. It wasn't just a one go. Over the many decades, I've had many opportunities, and I always stepped out of my own organization. I volunteered. I participated in USJC. I worked with different people. And at work, I took on work assignments that nobody else wanted, threw myself into countries and areas that no woman would dare go to. I just did. And then what I found was that I could really hone my skills into understanding, listening, empathizing, and that went a long way. And I think if you're authentic and genuine and want to help people, like Yoshinogawa and Sustainable Sake, I just want to help them market this to Whole Foods, Itoen. Are you here? Are you guys here? I just want to make sure that there's a great success in everybody's relationship, not just for myself. And over time, it just turned into a business skill. But it wasn't, I didn't do it consciously per se in the beginning. Towards the end, it was more deliberate to make sure that I do right by my team and my company. So yeah, definitely if you're part of USJC, there's so many great leadership programs and opportunities, and please come help us.
Well said. I think for me, because I spent many years as a professor teaching, I never had problems speaking. But when I came to Japan, I learned to try to listen more. And if you give people a chance to speak, especially those in Japan who may be a little more shy, really amazing things come out, and you learn so much. And I've said it to some of my colleagues, and I do believe this, even though there are a lot of limited natural resources in Japan, the most precious natural resource is the people of Japan. So how do we actually unlock the full potential? I talked about amplifying human potential, and I think we have tremendous opportunity to do that, whether it's through digital tools and technology, but also empathizing and listening and becoming good collaborators. And I think that is going to be the desired workforce skill of the future. I think many of us went to college when being able to take tests and memorize things was a huge advantage. But in the age of Google or in the age of instant information, what is more important for the workforce in the future? And I think it's teamwork and collaboration and having broad perspective and being really mission-driven to the community. So this is something I think that we could truly unlock the full potential. It would be amazing for both countries as kind of the world's largest democracies.
Thank you very much. That was a really good comment to conclude this excellent panel. We learned so much about smart projects and then what to put in the center. And also we touched upon how to grow the leadership and what to expect, what to prepare ourselves. And we also, I believe that we provide you a different kind of accent, American accent, British accent, and the Japanese accent of English. So I hope you enjoyed this panel, and hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you very much. Thank you. Great.
Thank you so much.